It has been a very controversial topic to talk about enemy casters in Mythic Plus. The entire war within, they're having some crazy interrupt requirements. It is incredibly common to die to a Holy Smite in Priority. We went a whole season playing Grip into Beam into Silence in every pull, and now there's a misconception in the community that nothing is changing in Midnight. The term Boltslop has been coined somewhere to describe mobs that spam cast bolts. There was a quasi video that was talking about nameplate issues that then sparked some discourse about the casters in Midnight Dungeons, and then there was a Wowhead article refuting the point, and I want to expand on this. So my stance is, I have been playing a lot of Beta M+, and bolters are heavily nerfed. Blizzard has adopted a new philosophy for casters in Midnight that they are absolutely adhering to in the 4 dungeons that we have seen for the upcoming season. This philosophy includes that every bolt cast is minimum 2.5 seconds, no casts are shorter than that, some casts are even longer at 4 seconds or even 8 seconds. And for other casters that are not bolts, like an interrupt that does group damage or something, the cooldown is really long and can be solo kicked every time. And then the actual damage these bolts do if they go off is a lot less than War Within as well, about a 30% nerf on average. And the composition of packs is a lot better. There are no dungeons that have 3 casters in one pack like Priority did, and there are very few packs that even have 2 bolters. And there was also a massive change to the players' kick lockouts, where any successful kick will stop a mob from casting for an additional 2 seconds compared to War Within, or even 3 seconds for some classes. Now I mapped out what a CC rotation looked like in War Within and what one would look like in Midnight. So this timeline is for War Within. Assume this is a pack in Priority, you have 2 casters, one is a priest casting Holy Smite, and we put a DK and a DH to kick it. Both of these kicks have a 3-second lockout in War Within. So first we have a Mind Freeze on the first cast, we get into a 3-second lockout, mob starts casting again. 5 seconds in, we press Disrupt. 3-second lockout, mob start casting again at 8 seconds. We have to use a stop here, and say it's a 1-second Diard stun or something, the mob will start casting again around 10 seconds. We're going to have to stop again because our Mind Freeze is not up till 13 seconds. So we've already used 2 stops 12 seconds into the pull. We get another 3-second lockout, and then we're at 16 seconds. Our Disrupt is not up till 20 seconds. We have to use another 2 stops to bridge the gap. We have just used 4 stops in the first 20 seconds of a pull to kick 2 casters. Of course, people aren't doing this exactly in the current season. They are playing Prot Warrior, they have AoE Silence, but still, it is a pretty insane ask. So now this is the exact same kick rotation in Midnight. We have an Umbral Bolter. It's a minimum 2.5 second cast because there are no bolters below that. We are kicking late here, so 2 seconds into the cast, we use our Mind Freeze. 5-second lockout, doesn't start casting again until 7 seconds. And then 2 seconds into that, we use Disrupt, 5-second lockout. Another 2 seconds in, we are at 16 seconds. We use Mind Freeze, 5-second lockout. We get to 21 seconds in the pull, and we haven't used a single CC. Now, if we go a bit beyond that, we have to use our first CC at 23 seconds, and it's a single CC. Our second CC doesn't have to be used till 40 seconds. Now, of course, it's not really realistic to kick 2 seconds in every time. Even if you were to insta-kick every cast, it looks like this. You use your Mind Freeze at 0.5, Disrupt at 6, Mind Freeze off CD at 12.5, and then you have to do a stun to bridge at 18 seconds, and this is still way less requirement than War Within. And if you didn't have a 12-second kick, then it would be a little bit different. You'd have to put your stun in here. It would just be an order of kick, kick, stun, kick, kick, stun, which is way more manageable than whatever it was in War Within. If you had a range kick, it is a bit worse, and Hunter is a bad range kick. There are some good range kicks like Mage or Evoker. You would do like a Disrupt, counter shot at 6 seconds, you'd have to do a stun to bridge, and then 20 seconds in, the mob would start casting, you'd still have 10 seconds on your counter shot, so you'd have to bridge a lot of stops. But it also doesn't matter too much if a bolt goes off. If you let a bolt go through, it is actually quite likely that no one will die. I did an 18 on beta and we let some bolts go off and they do less than half my health. I won't get one-shot by a bolt till a plus 25, which I don't know if anyone will reach that level. Although if another mechanic happens at the same time, bolts can still kill you, of course, but it will happen less frequently. So for some examples of the bolters they have in dungeons, you might remember the Vexinus packs in Algathar Academy. These guys were bolters and you did one massive pull and had to spam CC them all. Well, they made their surge cast a 4-second cast with 20-second cooldown, meaning any corrupted Menafiend can now be completely solo kicked. They also removed some Menafiends and also every scepter. The trash at the end of Algathar did get made harder though. There are a lot of bolters and the Echo Knights do an AoE much like Paladins from Priority. But these 2 casters down the stairs will most likely be skipped to enable bigger pools without many casters. Seed of the Triumvirate is a dungeon that was a hot topic for having a lot of casters, but they are pretty spread out in a way that you don't need to play too many at a time. In the first two areas, you can pull in a way that you just play one bolter and maybe one or two spore bats at most at a time, and the spore bats are solo kickable. In the third boss area, there are 2 packs with double bolters that you either would pull them separately or you'd pull both at the same time for 4 bolters, but they don't really have much health, so you can kind of just burst them down. Skyreach is honestly a joke of the dungeon for kicks. There is like one single pack in that entire dungeon with bolts. Every other kick is just a solo kickable thing. And Pit of Sauron does have a lot of bolters spread out along the dungeon, but it is typically pulled in a way where you're playing one bolter and maybe one cadaver at a time, which is solo kickable. On Icken Crick, there is a death bolt cast from the boss that is 8 seconds long, so it's very hard to miss. And also, an interesting note is that these dungeons did have more casters when beta initially released, but Blizzard put out a patch only 3 days later that removed a lot of casters, so it is clear they do want to follow their philosophy on reducing bolts in dungeons. Now, you might say that I say it's a joke to do the kicks, but when you're in a pug, they will still go off. And that's true, but is it a problem? A lot of these kicks aren't really resulting in full wipes until really high keys. It is probably not going to be nearly as bad. And I do want to highlight that not enough people in the pug scene are using focus marker kicks. Everyone in the year 2026 should have a macro that focuses a mob and marks it. And when you see a marked mob, you know that someone else is covering it. And maybe an unpopular opinion, but I'm hoping this add-on change actually bricks auto markers, which for some reason people are still using, even though they actually make it harder to assign kicks. This focus macro alone, I think, is more useful than Omni CD was. But this focus marker thing doesn't actually solve mobs that need more than one kick. There is a lot of discourse about how bad it is to overlap kicks and CC in pugs. I see a very common suggestion that kicks should work in some way like dispels if you overlap kicks, and I want to give my opinion on this. I think there are a few inelegant solutions that are commonly proposed by the community that will not work well. Firstly, you cannot have kicks work like dispels where they only go on cooldown if they kick. Dispel is on GCD and kick isn't. You could just spam kick all the time if that was the case. I do see another suggestion where like if 2 people kick within the same second, the cooldown gets reset, and I think that would kind of undermine the purpose of kicks. Basically, anytime you see a mob casting, every single person would go to kick it, kind of shifts the burden of every single kick to every single person in the group. I also see the same suggestion, but instead of a reset, it's a 50% CD refund on the kick, which would solve the issue of everyone going for every kick, but I also think it would just be awkward that your kick just sometimes goes on half cooldown. You'd have to check the CD of your kick every time, and it'll probably just mess with muscle memory. And another suggestion is to remove the stop chain from War Within. I would support this, but it is obvious Blizzard does not want to revert it, and they're also kind of designing kick requirements around it now, so I don't think it's a point worth talking about. But I did have one suggestion that I thought up of, and I think it would make some sense. Basically, the issue with stops now is a kick is way more powerful than a stop. If you press disrupt, a mob will not cast for 5 seconds, but if you stop with, say, an in-cap roar, the mob will immediately start casting again in 0.5 seconds. And if you try to kick a mob, but someone else in your group hits this in-cap roar because they are scared or because a different mob is about to go off, and it overlaps right before you press kick, your kick is wasted and the mob is still casting, and now you have to scramble to use a different stop on it. I suggest that if a mob would be mid-cast, but they were CC'd out of it, the lockout eligible duration would persist for the maximum duration their cast would be. For example, if a 2.5 second cast was stopped in 1 second in with an in-cap roar, and you kick during the in-cap roar, the mob would still get a 5 second lockout. I think this would be elegant because it would not require tracking anything, it would all kind of just be done under the hood, and it would not actually be optimal to do. You would still rather wait for the cast to start again to use your kick. But this is just a concept I wanted to bring to light. I don't know if it's needed or necessary. I just had this idea. Anyways, that's it. Don't believe everything you hear. Casters are less of a problem in Midnight.